And we're back on Big Board Sports here, 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio in Albany, New York. And we're joined by New York Times best-selling author Jeff Pearlman, whose release of Football for a Buck, The Crazy Rise and Crazier Demise of the USFL, a week from today. But you can pre-order it on Amazon. Again, the full release of the book a week from today. Jeff, this subject caught my attention pretty quickly when I saw you tweeting about the book, because I remember the ESPN 30 for 30, and the way I kind of work with documentaries is I watch a documentary, and if it's an hour or an hour and a half, that's good, but I always find myself Googling for more information, so I can't wait to get my hands on this book to dive deeper into the USFL, which I know was like a roller coaster ride for athletes, owners, coaches. What is it about that league, Jeff, that drew you to want to write a book?
Well, I'm a child of the 80s, so when I was a kid, the USFL was just this big blur of colors and crazy nicknames and, bold-faced football player names, Herschel Walker, Jim Kelly, Steve Young, on and on and on. And it was the last real challenge to the NFL, where a league came along, wasn't afraid of the NFL, if anything, wanted to take it on directly, and it almost made it. And it's really enticing to think how close a league came to sort of not killing the NFL, but sitting there as an equal. And I just always find the story really fascinating.
Check him out on Twitter. I mentioned it. He's got all the information up on his Twitter page about how you can access the book, how you can access his website, as well as his podcast, at Jeff Pearlman. Simply put, you may know the name from other New York Times best-selling books like The Bad Guys Won, the story of the 1986 World Series championship team with the Mets, Gunslinger, which I have in my personal collection as a Packers fan, the life and career of Brett Favre. Okay, Jeff, so if the USFL was so close to, passing the NFL, at least pushing it to the brink, what is it with this league that just didn't work? Because based on my limited knowledge of the league, they were willing to pay more. It provided a competitive product, so why didn't it work?
All right, so basically, this isn't a political statement, I promise you, but after the first year, Donald Trump bought a team, the New Jersey Generals, and as soon as he got in, that the USFL was a spring league. That was part of what made it work. It wasn't going head-to-head directly with the NFL. As soon as Trump bought the Generals, he kept pushing teams to move to fall and pushing the league to move to fall. We need to take the NFL on directly. We need to fight the NFL. And his whole motive, it turns out, was he wanted his own NFL team. And if it sounds like some diabolical plan by a football villain, it actually kind of was. He thought he could shoehorn himself into the NFL, and that if they moved to fall, the NFL would be forced to absorb a bunch of teams. So he pushed, and he ended up leading a lawsuit. The USFL wound up suing the NFL for an antitrust violation, meaning the NFL had a monopoly on TV, and he led a lawsuit. He was the front man for it. It was a horrible disaster. The USFL actually won the suit. The jury had no sympathy for the league because they blamed them for their own problems, and they were winning $1. And when they won $1, that was the death of the USFL.
We are talking with Jeff Pearlman, author of Football for a Buck, The Crazy Rise and Crazier Demise of the USFL. Jeff, Roger Weiland, along with Chris Honorato here on Big Board Sports, 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. How many interviews did you conduct for this book? Anxious to hear that. And when I do read this book, will I find any surprises?
Oh man! So I interviewed about 430 people, and it was just beyond like the Trump stuff. It was this crazy renegade league where, like the star wide receiver for the Houston Gamblers, this guy Richard Johnson, the best receiver in the league, was smoking a joint before every game to get ready to play, and the San Antonio Gunslingers stopped paying their players. So they all started running to the bank after practices to cash their checks, and the star defensive lineman showed up at the owner's house with a baseball bat to beat him up unless he got paid. On and on and on. There's just a million different stories of crazy football players, crazy times, 1980s excesses. It's the most fascinating thing I've ever written about, truly.
Jeff, let me just switch your attention here for a second to the one of the new leagues coming out, and that is the Alliance of American Football, and what that might or might not do for the National Football League.
Well, I think there's an oversaturation of the NFL, certainly. I mean, I think when people talk about what's wrong with the NFL right now, and they point to the kneeling, or they point to Jerry Jones, or, like, to me, the answer is pretty obvious. It's an oversaturation. It's just too much. It's too many days. It's the NFL Network on all the time. You know, you can have chocolate, and you can love chocolate, but if someone gives you chocolate 7 days a week, you don't want to eat it all the time. I think the Alliance is actually a really good idea. It's going to be a spring league, like the USFL. They hired big-name coaches. One of them, Steve Spurrier, started his career as a head coach in the USFL. They're going to focus on regions, meaning a team in Florida is going to stock its team largely with players from Florida and Florida State, Miami, and schools like that. And I think the smart thing they're doing that the USFL didn't do is they're not trying to kill the NFL, and they're not trying to beat the NFL. And I think it would be celebrated if the quarterback for a team in the Alliance winds up being signed by the Jets. I think they'll view that as a good thing. So you can't beat the NFL right now. It's just too big. It's too much money. It's been around too long. So if you act as sort of a second league, a 1A league, which I think they're trying to do, it's a good idea.
The USFL tried it in the 80s, didn't work, and Jeff Pearlman has all the backstory to it, especially some of the outside stuff that we wouldn't know about. More than 400 interviews conducted for this book, and things that maybe happened in reality, but we may not necessarily believe in a football league like the USFL. Jeff, I appreciate the time here this morning. Good luck with the book. Again, it's Football for a Buck, The Crazy Rise and Crazier Demise of the USFL. Pre-order it on Amazon today. Full release a week from today in every bookstore near you. Jeff, good luck with the book. I know this was kind of a labor of love for you, right?
Oh, man. I've never gotten paid less money for a book. I've never had to push harder to get a book. I just busted my butt in this thing.
Now, wait a minute. Yeah. Why was this one difficult? Because as we mentioned, I mean, you've got like 6 or 7, and I may be shortchanging you there, best-selling books.
Because it's not an obvious topic, and a lot of publishers. First of all, I was pushing it way before Donald Trump became president, so that hook wasn't there. And I just it's not obvious, like you said. It's a 30-year-old league that a lot of people don't remember, and you have to sell the idea of how great it was. It's not Brett Favre or Walter Payton where it's instant recognition.
Yeah, the Payton book is Sweetness. If you're interested in Walter Payton, check that one out as well. It's a long list on Jeff Pearlman's resume of great books out there. There's no doubt about it. Jeff, again, good luck with the book. Hopefully we can catch up down the road as you continue your great work.
Cool. Thank you so much.